Okay, so this is the battery out of your bike, and I'm just going to pull this MotoMaster sticker off so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, now I hope that you can see. Let me just grab a pen. All right, hope that you can see your battery clearly here in this video. You might see some darker lines here. And there's one down here and there's none down there. So anywhere that you see this column is light is where the absence of battery acid exists. And anywhere that you see that there's darkness is where there is battery acid. So for some reason, the battery in your bike had been depleted of battery acid. I'm just going to write a mark here. I don't know if you can see this. I hope that you can, but there's one line here. There's another one there. There's another one there. There's one way down here. This one's completely empty. And this one looking mostly sulfated by the very fine lines. I don't know how well you can see. There's some really, really fine lines there. That's a sulfated cell. But if we pan back a little bit, I would guess that the level of battery acid in here looks something like that. Yeah, not very good. Anyway, tipping it forward, we're getting a little bit over the line. Tipping it back, we're getting a little under the line. As you can see through the reflection. And if we just let it sit static on the desk, it slowly recovers back to that. So this is one of the reasons why your bike is failing to start. Regardless of the carb issue, which I've not looked into yet, we're going to fill these columns with battery acid. We're going to put the battery on charge. They should be at this upper level where it's clearly written right here. It should be at this upper level, all of the cells. So potentially we could bring this flooded battery, as it's known, back to life. But typically when a battery reaches this state, it doesn't usually come back. But let's give that a try for the sake of the 60 odd bucks for a battery. Okay, now with the battery topped up, again, I'm not sure how well you can see the levels, but they are all now up to full. It's really, really subtle, but you can kind of see, at least I hope you can, that it's I've topped the battery and the acid is full. Okay, so we're going to, whoopsie, do a quick load test on this battery just to see where it's coming from with respect to power. We're probably going to see failing numbers, failing numbers just because the battery was close to dead, 12.01. We're going to say that this, oh, it's not an AGM battery. Hold on, let me start over again. 12. It's not AGM. Oh, that was it right there. Okay, flooded battery. And we're going to cold crank this battery at 100-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. Oops. All right. And let's see what we get on the test. Yeah, bad. So we're not getting any cold crank numbers out of here. Yeah, recharge battery. So you're getting 110. That's not real though. We're gonna charge it. Yeah, okay, so the battery's bad. Okay, there's no surprise there. We knew that that was the case because the battery was dead, and you know it because you tried it yourself. So we're going to put this on the charger and bring it back to life. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll come back to life. Put all these plugs back in here and put it back in the bike. Let me refit the camera, and we're going to do a compression test on your bike. All right, so first I'm going to apologize for this viewpoint. Typically, the bike is up on the lift. If you subscribe to my channel, you would see that most of my videos start with, hey, I've got your bike up on the... Okay, so this spark plug is loose. It was barely even installed. But anyway, yeah, the video starts with, I've got your bike up on the lift. But sincerely, the camera is on the lift. That is soaking wet. Someone spent some money on these. These are iridium plugs, so they shouldn't foul. But there it is. They are soaking wet. But there's an ST1100 on the lift right behind the cam. This one is told like it's not even installed. Both spark plugs are loose. This is one of the contributing reasons to why your bike may not want to start. And both of the plugs look like that. So this one, super lean, has been dealing with a vacuum leak of some kind. Wow. And this one here is actually looking, pretty good. They're a little on the wet side. Undoubtedly, this is probably from you trying to start the bike. But this one, wow. And they're both loose. Okay, put those aside. Break out the compression tester. Okay, one of the main reasons why I'm suggesting a compression test on this bike is because of a known phenomena among motorcycle mechanics of this particular bike, the Suzuki GS 500. This particular bike, made in the 90s, suffered a problem with valve seats. I went into quite a bit of explanation about it. That on there. Where the valve seats come loose inside the engine and causes a real problem trying to achieve proper compression. And what you end up with is a very, very fussy bike that will sometimes start and often not for no rhyme or reason. Seemingly, like, we know what it is, but impressionably, if you've never heard of this problem, then what you're left with is, why won't this bloody bike start? So it's the valve seats, typically, and that's one of the reasons why this near 40-year-old motorcycle, you don't see many of them anymore. It wasn't a loser, but it was pretty darn close to being a loser by the simple fact that this valve seat thing was dogging it. Now, the easiest fix from the unassuming bike mechanic would be to do a compression test, which is what we're about to do. And if the compression test produced low numbers, that would conclude typically that a mechanic would go inside the engine and do a valve service, or at least an inspection that would lead to a valve service. They'd have low numbers in the compression test. They put feeler gauges under the cams and they'd realize, hey, your valve clearance is super tight, or in some cases completely closed, and they perform a valve service. And it would work. It would successfully work for a little while, but loose valve seats are not corrected with a valve adjustment. Loose valve seats is corrected by often replacing the seats and having the new ones properly inserted. But on a bike of this vintage, this mileage, the cost of doing that succeeds the value of the bike, I'm going to say, by a couple of times. So most people just abandon the job. They just figure, forget it. It's way too much money. The bike's not worth it. And rightfully so, they walk away. And typically they just sell it off quick, or they pawn it off quick. And then the same problem still exists in the bike, is presented to the next owner. The next owner goes to the next mechanic. The next mechanic does another compression test, which leads to a valve service, and so on and so on and so on. And the problem is just never corrected. Anyway, let's get on with finding out whether or not my suspicion may be accurate. I do sincerely hope that I'm wrong, but let's just find out together. Now, to do a proper compression test, I got to hold that here so you can see the numbers. Yeah, let me move the camera a little bit closer so you get a better view. Yeah, there we go. All right. I need to hold the clutch. So we'll put this here. This is just a little handcuff that holds the clutch lever in position so the bike will want to start. And turn on the booster pack. Turn the key. Yeah, okay. That didn't sound very optimistic. Headlight is on. There's the compression tester. Grab a handful of throttle and away we go. So that is a fantastic test. That's I don't know how well you can see that, but that's like 160 or so. So that is great. I'm not going to do another test on this hole. We're just going to switch to the other side. real quick here. We'll get the camera rolling, and we're going to do the other side. This is really good. This means that the likely issue with your bike is also a number of things. One, both of your spark plugs were loose. Two, you mentioned that you had messed with the carb top with one of the diaphragm lids for the carb itself. Turn the camera a little bit there. And yeah, battery, what was it? Battery, carb, spark plugs. Yeah, so those three things is enough to dog you when trying to start the bike. Okay, here we are on the other hole. Turn this key, which is kind of sticky. Come on, here we go. And full throttle, and I hope you can see that. There we go. All right, that's another really good test. Can't see the numbers very well because my camera work sucks. I hope you can see that. That's, again, consistent on both holes. Okay, so your compression is great. This tells me to tell you that this bike is actually worth investing in. So we initially ran into each other on the street because you've got a couple of leaky fork seals that are really, really dangerous. Get this camera out of the tripod. Really, really dangerous. You can see how it's leaking all wet and gross down there. And this is potentially leaking down onto the brake rotor. Oh, God, is it ever? Whoa, dude. Okay, so... all right, so we're gonna do that. Now that we know that your engine is viable, a great platform to start on, we have a few things that we need to do. I'm going to call Suzuki after I've done this video, going to order up the fork seals and the bushings. There's a upper bushing here and a lower bushing inside the fork leg. Replace both of those, do both the fork seals. We're going to continue to use your iridium spark plugs because although they're soaking wet and they're installed loose, they're still good. We're going to continue to use those. We're going to put your battery on the battery charger now that we've filled up the cells with battery acid. And we're also going to have a closer look at the carburetor tucked in down here. The one on the other side you mentioned, but we'll check them both just to make sure that they're good. And from there, we should have a bike that wants to start and will be safe enough to ride. Sir, I also need to lastly warn you that, if I can just step through here, that, see the oil is dripping on the ground here. That the oil has come from this fork seal. It has run down the leg and it's got all over the brake rotor. It's also all over your brake pads. So we're going to want to replace these as well. Also noticing, and I'm not trying to upsell you, I just want to keep you safe. Get through here. Your rear tire is a bald. Yeah, your rear tire is completely bald. It might be a good time to invest in a new tire for the rear. The front tire, not my favorite choice of tires, is definitely at the wear bar mark. I'm not sure you can see right there, but that's a wear mark. So I get two tires, and the bike will feel brand new. Front, rear, fork seals, brake pads. You might need steering bearings. I don't know yet. I haven't lifted the front end off yet, but we'll talk about that later. Spark plugs are good to go. Carburetor, battery. Yeah, a number of things to do, but we're getting started. Woo! Okay, driving now, and I reviewed the video and realized I may have said a few things that were wrong. First of all, your bike is not 40 years old. It's 32 years old. It's a 1993. It's 2025. 32 years. And what's important about that distinction between 40 and 32, regardless, is you had mentioned that you had never heard of this valve seat issue before. And remarkably, I think that it's largely unspoken of and talked about or even known because of the age of the bike. If your bike was a flagship that Suzuki had made, if it was a GSXR or an R6 or a CBR or something like that, it would be talked about and people would widely know. And I'm not suggesting that the GS 500 is a loser, but I'm also saying that it wasn't such a popular bike that that this issue made itself known. This issue was limited. It was only done for about 3 years, and this is a Japanese bike, Suzuki, of course. But what I recall, the bike was assembled in Malaysia or someplace other than Japan. I can't remember exactly where it was. And as a result, there were a few bikes that made its way to North America where this issue presented itself. So if you've got a motorcycle mechanic who is not 30 or even 40 years of age, there's a pretty good potential that they've never even really heard of it, simply because it wasn't a largely talked about issue. And on top of that, it's not a very popular bike, and on top of that, it's also a much older bike. So the cost value is prohibitive of people widely knowing why the issue was what it became. Anyway, sorry about the terrible lighting in my truck. I'm speeding down the highway as we speak to catch a ferry. I'm trying to get to the island. I think you're going to the island too. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll just wanted to make that little correction about the age and potentially why you've never heard of it. Hope you have a great weekend, and I will talk to you later.